Hey guys, my name is Nikki and welcome to my adventurous life. This is an eclectic channel detailing my journey from being a frustrated public school educator to living a life of adventure, pursuing meaningful work, and experiencing all that this world has to offer. In today's video, we're going to talk about The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, one of the most popular books in the self-help and business genre. This book was kind of the instigator that set me on my journey to pursue something outside of what was safe and comfortable, and it eventually took me across the world to Thailand, back to the United States, to a cool city in New Orleans, Louisiana, and has my wife and I dreaming about a life that we could have never imagined just a couple of years ago before I read this book. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about the lessons that I learned and took away from this book that may not get quite as much attention as they deserve. So without further ado, let's dig into it. This is 5 overlooked lessons from the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Let's go. The first and most important takeaway from this book, in my opinion, is the concept that Tim terms the new rich. The 4-Hour Workweek doesn't exactly lay out a plan to make more money than you ever have in your life. While some of the implications of the entrepreneurial aspects of this book can lead to that, the simplest takeaway that I think was the most practical for me was the idea that the definition that I had in my head of wealth was one that was planted by the consumeristic propaganda culture that exists here in the United States. To me, at the time of reading this book, rich meant $1 million in the bank, a nice house, a nice car, and the ability to consume whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. But the genius of Tim Ferriss's work here is in redefining these terms. And the implications of this redefinition and realignment of values really was the open door that I needed to get out of my hated 9-to-5. Instead of thinking about how I could make more money and narrowing down just on that issue alone, I was able to consider other opportunities that would get me out of my dreaded 9-to-5 and help my wife and I live a life that we felt was more in line with our values. My channel really focuses on the concept of living authentically, living intentionally, and living adventurously. These are kind of the 3 principles that my wife and I felt were non-negotiables for us as we built our life together. In Tim Ferriss's book, especially his redefinement of the concept of wealth, really helped us put things into perspective. And it set us on the journey to move to Southeast Asia, which was one of the most incredible experiences that either of us have had in our lives. The second overlooked lesson from the 4-Hour Workweek that I want to highlight is the idea of the art of refusal. Tim talks about this in chapter 7 of the 4-Hour Workweek. In this chapter, he focuses on time wasters, things like unnecessary meetings that can be cut out of your schedule. I don't want to belabor this point. I think this is something that anyone who's in the self-help and personal development space is going to know about this. But for me, learning to say no when the situation wasn't optimal to my future or my wife's future was very difficult. I'm kind of a conflict avoider by nature. And so even just the act of going in to see my principal at the school at which I taught and telling him that I'd be quitting my job and moving to another country was a really difficult task for me. I had to make really tough decisions and cut things out of my life that didn't fit with the goals that my wife and I had developed together. And the 4-Hour Workweek was instrumental in helping me do that. Without Tim Ferriss's writing and learning about the art of refusal, I might not have had the confidence or the courage to step into some of these situations and make a change. The third concept that I learned from Tim in the 4-Hour Work Week is the concept of escaping paralysis and fear setting. This is a really interesting way of thinking about your life, and it really changed my paradigm in a way that allowed me to, once again, think about what was important and think about what I was afraid of becoming, and intentionally design my life in such a way that would lead me towards the optimal goal. As I said before, I tend to be a conflict avoider and a bit passive in my life decisions. Not only that, I struggle with self-confidence and feeling this imposter syndrome that doesn't allow me to do the things I feel led to do. Even though there's some kind of passion in my heart about a certain concept or topic or idea, I tend to get this analysis paralysis. I read 15 books on the topic, I watch a million YouTube videos, I listen to podcasts, and before you know it, I'm disinterested to some extent. I'm discouraged because I don't feel like I'm good enough to do the thing that I see these other people doing, and then I become paralyzed. And this chapter is another reminder, again, common in the self-help and personal development space, that reminded me that this imposter syndrome is something that everybody faces. It's a wall you have to climb over. I successfully changed careers from being a classroom teacher, which to many people feels like a life sentence. It's a stable job with benefits and a pension. And while all of that sounds great, those types of things are used to keep you there in the shackles of the job that most teachers, in my experience, hate. And so I was able to put into practice some of these steps that Tim talks about, avoiding the analysis paralysis, fear setting, really sitting and thinking about what would happen in 30 years if I was still a teacher at the high school at which I taught. I didn't like the vision of that future. It wasn't compelling to me. And sitting and reflecting on these things kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone and got me en route to living the life that I wanted to live. One thing that my wife and I really latched onto after reading this book is the concept of geo-arbitrage. Geo-arbitrage is simply using the power of one currency to go and live a life that is a higher standard of living than you could afford in your home country abroad. And that's what we did. We moved to Thailand. Even though I was receiving a Thai salary, the salary that I got as a teacher in Thailand afforded me a better life than the salary I got as a teacher in the United States afforded me here. But on top of that, my wife was able to keep her part-time job and made US dollars. So she made about the same that I did working full-time in Thailand. And then I picked up a couple of side hustles. I became a copywriter and got paid for that. I tutored English online. I did lots of different things, including this YouTube channel that got me started in the direction that I wanted to go. And during that time, that 2-year time in Thailand, the adventure that we lived there, I was able to pick up a lot of skills and learn things that I'm now bringing back with me to the United States in my new job in the corporate world. Geo-arbitrage is overlooked because a lot of people are not willing to make that kind of a radical move. But for us, it was the best decision we've ever made. And quite frankly, we're only in the US temporarily again to achieve another financial goal of buying a business. Once we do that, our dream is to move back overseas and live the life that we had before with a little bit of extra money in our pockets. The fifth and final lesson that I think is often overlooked from the 4-Hour Work Week is the last chapter, which focuses on adding life after subtracting work. The thing about Tim Ferriss that really grasped me is that he really lived life to the fullest up until the point of writing and beyond. Tim's a really interesting guy. I love to listen to his podcast, but the thing I've really loved about reading his work is going and reading some of the early blogs when he was living in Chiang Mai and going back and forth and traveling the world. There's not many people who have won martial arts contests in China, dance competitions in South America, and really squeezed the most out of every adventure like Tim Ferriss has. And my wife and I endeavored to be like him in that way. And so we moved to Chiang Rai, Thailand, northern Thailand. We lived there for 2 years. And every school break that I had and every opportunity that we received, we decided to go on an adventure. We got scuba certified in the southern parts of Thailand and dived on some amazing coral reefs in the island of Koh Lipe in the Andaman Sea and in the Gulf of Thailand. And we loved that experience. It's now set us on a course to go on more scuba adventures. It's a real passion for us now, and that was an amazing time. We did incredible treks into the northern Thai wilderness. We camped and hiked in the mountains. We swam with elephants. We, really tried to live our life to the fullest when we were there. Upon returning to the United States, we decided that, again, we weren't going to settle for a life that was less than optimal. And so upon receiving my new remote work job and my wife retaining her old one, we decided not to live in our hometown in Tennessee, but to move to a city that we felt we would enjoy a little bit more and live an adventurous life. And so we moved to New Orleans, Louisiana. And we're doing all of the things that one does in New Orleans. And though it may only be a year, maybe longer, we decided that just because we are subtracting certain types of work from our life doesn't mean that we have to also subtract living life. We want to really live, and we try to do that every day here in New Orleans. Again, just to review, the concept of the new rich, revaluing what does it mean to be wealthy? What does it mean to be rich? Can that definition change for you in a way that makes it more attainable? Number two, the art of refusal, not putting up with time wasting and energy burning things in your life, saying no to things, taking that step to quit your job if that's what it needs, taking that step to ask to work from home. You probably know what those things are that drain your soul, but a lot of them are unnecessary. And how many of those things can you learn to say no to? Number three, escaping paralysis. Don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. Don't give in to imposter syndrome. You're not an imposter. Your life and experiences are unique. And in living out of those experiences, you will start to achieve some of that fulfillment and longing that you have in your heart to be who you are, your authentic self, fully alive. The imposter syndrome is something we all deal with. I've dealt with it while making this video, and though I'm not a YouTube sensation at this point, it's something that I'm pushing through because I believe that it's worth it for me to become the person that I want to be. Number four, the concept of geo-arbitrage, going abroad to take advantage of the strength of the United States currency or the British currency or the Aussie currency, wherever you may be from, going to a place where you can enjoy life, have adventures on a budget. I recognize the privilege that I have to do this as an American citizen, to use my currency. But even if you're not an American citizen, you can do this. You can find places, parts of your own country, where going to that place might afford you a better life with more freedom than the one that you're currently experiencing. I mean, I see it within this country all the time. People moving from Southern California or New York into the Southeast or the Midwest to afford a bigger piece of land or more property so they can have a farm, or they can live the life that they wanted to live when they were living in a 400 square foot box in the city before, and they can do it at the same price. So thinking about, your situation, where can you go to eliminate some of the obstacles to living the life you want to live? And in so doing, you can still help the people out and be generous and be non-exploitative when you get to that location. So yes, we did go to Thailand, but our tax dollars went to the Thai government. Our spending money went to Thai businesses. We made sure to support the local economy. We made friends there. I don't think that our experience in Thailand was exploitative in the least. I even educated the Thai youth for 2 years, right? Gave them an opportunity to get an education, which I hope was a valuable one. So thinking about geo-arbitrage really changed our life, and I think that it might yours as well. If you haven't read The 4-Hour Workweek, and that's a concept that interests you, I highly recommend reading Tim's take on it. And then finally, number 5, adding life after subtracting work. The whole point of all of this self-help, personal development space, is to live a life that scratches the itch that we all have to do something more, to really be fully alive. There's a quote by Saint Irenaeus. He says, "The glory of God is man fully alive." You can take that and extrapolate it to any situation, whether you believe in God or not. The idea is that being fully alive is the pinnacle of human existence. What does being fully alive mean to you? And how can the 4-hour work week and some of these forgotten lessons do for you to help you become more fully alive? I hope you enjoyed this. Definitely read the book. I'll put a link to the book on Amazon in the description below. And thanks for joining me. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ask some questions. I'll be sure to answer them. I am back making content. I'm really excited about this new adventure, and I hope that you are as well. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.